The knock was small and patient. He held the latch and waited. It came again, as if the weather itself were asking. He opened because leaving it shut felt worse. 2 children stood on the step with rain in their hair and water sliding off their sleeves. They were barefoot. Their eyes were steady. The girl spoke first. "Papa sent us to live in your cellar." The boy said it with her, the same words, the same flat tone, like a lesson learned by fear. He stepped aside. "Come in." They crossed without touching him. Drops spread across the boards. He slid the bolt. The room smelled like wet wood and old coffee. He fed kindling to the stove, struck a match, and held it until flame caught. "Stand near the heat," he said. The girl nodded and guided the boy closer with a near touch. He filled 2 chipped cups with hot water and set them on the counter. Careful. They did not drink yet. The boy watched the door. The girl looked out of the window. "Names," he said. "Ruth," the girl said. "Milo," the boy said. He told them his name, unused in his mouth. Folks called him barkeeper or sir or nothing. "How long in the rain?" he asked. "Since the road turned," Ruth said. Milo raised 2 fingers, then 1. Time was distant to them. He noticed their feet again. "Shoes. We left them by the water," Ruth said. She did not say why. He did not ask. Questions opened doors. He gave them a towel. Ruth pressed it to Milo's face and then to her own with neat motions, the way someone handles borrowed things. Milo sipped and hissed. He waited for a story to come and knew not to force it. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "We will talk in the morning." Milo asked, "Is your cellar safe?" "It is dry," he said. "Quiet." "Quiet is what we need," Ruth said. He lifted a lamp and led them down the hall, past stacked crates with faded stamps. The building creaked like someone else breathing. At the end, he hooked 2 fingers through the iron ring and pulled. The trapdoor rose with a groan. Cool air touched his face. The smell of dirt and rope followed. He lowered the lamp, and light made a soft circle on jars. A blue bottle, a cot with 2 folded blankets. He went down first and set the lamp on a hook. A nail stuck from a beam like a finger pointing nowhere. The knit edge of one blanket had been mended crooked by his hand last winter, when nights were longer than sleep. "You can stay here," he said. "Keep the door open if you want." Ruth and Milo stepped off the stairs and stood, not touching anything. Ruth set her cup on a crate. "Do you talk?" He said, "Enough." Milo kept his eyes on the opening above. "Does the sheriff come here?" "For coffee," the man said. "To talk." "Does he like you?" Milo asked. "He likes to know everything," the man said. Ruth said, "He saw us once." Her voice thinned. The small lift at his neck said a line had been crossed. "When?" he asked. "Before the road turned," she said. He showed them the pump and bucket and how to wet towels for air. He pointed out the cotboard that sometimes slid. He told them the small rules that help a place hold. "If you need me," he said, "call." Ruth said, "We will." Milo raised his eyes to the square of light. "Will the man in the hat find us?" The man did not move. "What man?" Milo pressed 2 fingers together. "The one who watches roads." Ruth said, "Papa said the cellar keeps if we are quiet and still." "Who is your papa?" the man asked. "A man who owes someone," Ruth said. Milo said, "You understand owing." He left them the lamp and climbed the steps. He kept the trap door open. Back in the bar, he wiped the window with his sleeve. Rain smeared the street. The swinging sign across the way tilted and righted itself. For a breath, he thought he saw a figure by the far post, brim low, but water makes liars of shadows. He turned the front sign to close and slid the bolt slowly so the metal would not shout. He sat on a stool with a line of sight to the hall and the door. Ruth's voice came up soft. "Thank you." He said, "You are welcome." Milo asked, "Do storms end?" "They do," he said. "How long?" Milo asked. "It depends who made the clouds." He watched the gold square on the boards and told himself he would ask the rest tomorrow. Tonight, he would let the room breathe and listen for the sound that says, "A place accepts you." He placed his hands flat on the bar and waited for the rain to become ordinary again. He kept the lamp low, so shadows stayed small around the hallway mouth tonight. The trap door stuck halfway. He leaned his weight on it until the hinges moaned and the boards gave way. The sound filled the narrow hall, deep and slow, like the cellar didn't want company. The children stood shoulder to shoulder, faces still, not flinching. Ruth's hair was damp at the ends. Milo's toes curled against the floorboards. He took the lamp from its hook and set it on the step. "Watch your feet." The steps were narrow, the wood worn smooth by decades of shoes, none as small as theirs. The air shifted, cooler, carrying the faint smell of burlap and dry earth. He moved crates toward the wall, sliding them into place without scraping. Dust swirled in the lamplight. "Sleep here," he said, pointing to the corner where the cot sat. 2 blankets, one patched, one thin, lay folded at the end. The cot had been empty since the winter his last hired hand left in the night. Ruth's eyes traveled the room once, pausing on the far beam where nails stuck like crooked teeth. Milo stared at the lamp. "Does the sheriff come down here?" Milo asked. The words were quiet, but sharp. "No," he said. The answer came low and steady, like a hammer driving a nail. "Not for any reason?" Ruth asked. "Even if someone tells him?" "Even then." He bent and checked the cot's legs, testing for wobble. The boards beneath held firm. Milo's gaze moved to the shadows in the far corner. "Papa said cellars can hide people if they know how to stay still." "They can," he said. "And you." "We know," Ruth said before her brother could speak. She stepped past him and sat on the cot. Her hand smoothed the blanket once, then folded back into her lap. He showed them where the pump handle sat just inside the wall, the bucket beside it. "Water's good down here," he said. "Cool." He pointed to the crate of candles and the matches wrapped in oilcloth. "Light them only if you need to." "Why not keep the lamp?" Milo asked. "Because light tells people where to look," he said. Ruth tilted her head, studying him. "Do you think someone's looking?" "I think it's best to act like they are." The boy sat on the floor, back against a barrel. He ran his fingers along the wood, as if reading it. "The man in the hat," he said. "Papa said he is followed by sound." "Then you'll be quiet," the man said. Milo nodded once. Ruth's eyes stayed on him. "You've hidden people before." He didn't answer. He set the lamp back on the step. The light stretched shadows long across the floor and into the corners. From above, a slow creak moved through the boards, as if the building had shifted. The sound made Ruth's head turn. "Is that—" "Just the rain settling in," he said. "Old boards complain." He took the matches from the crate, struck one, and lit a candle on the beam. The flame trembled once before holding. "I'll leave this for tonight. Blow it out before you sleep." Ruth asked, "Will you lock it?" "Do you want me to?" "Yes," she said. He nodded. "All right." He climbed the steps, pulling the trapdoor closed. The iron latch fell into place with a soft clink. He stood for a moment in the hall, hand still on the wood, feeling the cool air rising from beneath. Back in the bar, he poured himself a coffee gone lukewarm. The front windows rattled in their frames. He checked the bolts, then returned to the hall and leaned against the wall, listening. Ruth's voice drifted up. "Do you think he'll come?" Milo's answer was too soft to catch, but the barkeeper could tell it was one word. He didn't open the door again. He stayed there until the candlelight faded to a faint gold square around the trapdoor's edges. Only then did he walk away, the sound of the latch still in his head, as steady as a promise. The rain cut the street into moving sheets, glass blurring the light from the lamp and stretching shadows into tall, swaying figures. He stood behind the bar with one hand on a cup that had gone cold. At first, he thought the shape across the road was a trick of the glass, the way water bends things. Then it didn't move. A man still as a fence post, brim pulled low enough to erase the face. The coat hung long, heavy, enough to sag at the shoulders, hands resting at his sides like they'd been told to wait there. The barkeeper didn't shift his weight, didn't blink more than he had to. He let his gaze run to the edges, checking for tricks. The man held his ground. The street between them swam with water, yet the figure might as well have been carved from the dark. From the hallway came a sound he knew too well, a dull, low push against the trapdoor, the kind that wasn't from settling wood. He set the cup down and moved to the narrow hall. The air there had a weight, as if the candle below had eaten the breath out of it. The sound came again, harder, rattling the iron latch in its loop. He crouched, palm flat on the wood. "Ruth?" Her voice rose from under, thin but certain. "Papa said we'd be safe here." Another voice followed, sharp and clipped, Milo. "But he's outside." The barkeeper didn't ask how they knew. "Stay down there. Quiet." Ruth asked, "Is it him?" He didn't answer. He went back to the bar. The figure still stood across the street, rain cutting straight off the brim. The man's boots were half lost in the pooling water, but he didn't shift, didn't raise a hand. The barkeeper lit another lamp and set it in the far corner where it would deepen shadows instead of spilling them into the street. A floorboard whispered behind him. He turned. Ruth was in the hall, bare feet pale against the wood, hair damp from the cellar air. "Why's he here?" "You shouldn't be up," he said. "You saw him." "Yes." Milo appeared beside her, small and stiff, eyes moving to the window before his chin followed. "Papa said if the hat stops moving, it means he's decided." "Decided what?" Milo looked away. "Doesn't matter." The barkeeper poured water into 2 cups, slid them across the counter. "Drink, then back down." Ruth didn't move. "You think you can keep him out?" "I've kept worse off." "Not like him," Milo said. They all looked at the window. The figure took a single step forward, slow, deliberate, planting the boot into water without splashing. Then he stopped. The barkeeper turned the front sign too close, eased the bolt into place without making the metal ring. "You'll sleep," he told them. "Not if he's there," Ruth said. "Then you'll learn to sleep with him there." She looked like she wanted to spit the thought back, but her jaw held shut. Milo drank in 3 gulps, set the cup down hard. "Papa said the cellar's safe because it's not ours." The barkeeper's eyes narrowed. "What's that mean?" "It means someone else lost it before we found it," Ruth said. "That's what keeps it quiet. And if it's not quiet, then the man in the hat comes," she said. The figure took another slow step, the distance between them thinner than it should be. After only 2 moves, the barkeeper walked them to the hallway. Down. Ruth stayed on the first step, looking back. "Will you watch?" "I will." The trapdoor shut with a sigh, the latch sliding into place. He stood over it until the sound of their breaths slipped into the floorboards. He went to the window. The space across the street was empty now, only water, lamplight, and the sway of the sign. Still, he stayed watching, waiting for the hat to reappear. The bell over the door gave 1 short ring before dying in the draft. He looked up from the counter. The sheriff stepped in, boots heavy from the wet street, rain beads catching in his beard. He set his hat on the bar, crown down, and took the stool 2 seats from the end. "Coffee," the sheriff said. The barkeeper poured without asking how he took it. The sheriff's eyes followed the steam. "2 strays came through town," he said. The barkeeper's shrug was small. "Plenty passed through." "Not like these," the sheriff said. "Young, barefoot, a boy and a girl." The barkeeper slid the mug across. The sheriff caught it without looking. "Can't say I've seen them," the man said. The sheriff sipped, eyes still on him. "Is that so?" A faint cough drifted from the back room. Light, almost nothing, but the sheriff's head turned just enough. "Cold air," the barkeeper said. The sheriff smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "If you see them, you know where to send them." The barkeeper leaned on the counter. "Why?" "Better they're with me than who's looking." "Who's looking?" The sheriff tapped the mug. "Man in a hat." "Have you seen him?" The barkeeper's silence was enough. "Thought so," the sheriff said. "He's been on the road 3 nights. Folks don't stand that long unless they're waiting to collect." The barkeeper topped off the coffee. "Could be waiting on you." The sheriff's grin was slow. He wouldn't wait that long. In the hall, a floorboard shifted. The sheriff's eyes flicked toward it. "Place settling?" "Always does when it rains," the barkeeper said. The sheriff finished his coffee and set the mug down with care. "You keep your head down. If they come through, I'll take them off your hands." "Not in the habit of giving away guests," the barkeeper said. "They're not guests," the sheriff replied. "They're trouble you can't shoot your way out of." The barkeeper met his stare. "We'll see." The sheriff picked up his hat, brushed the brim with his thumb, and placed it on his head. "We will." He left without the bell ringing this time. The door eased shut behind him. The barkeeper stood still until the sound of boots in the water faded. Only then did he step into the hall. Ruth stood at the far end, pale in the dim light. "He knows," she said. "He suspects," the barkeeper said. "That's enough." Milo came out from the cellar steps. "Will he come back?" "Yes." Ruth's fingers twisted the edge of her sleeve. "Papa said the sheriff can't see you if you don't speak." "I already spoke," the barkeeper said. "Then he'll come back sooner," Milo said. The barkeeper motioned them toward the trapdoor. "Stay down there until I say something different." They obeyed, without argument this time. The door closed over them, the latch falling into place with a dull clink. He returned to the bar, wiped the counter where the sheriff's mug had sat. The coffee ring faded, but not the weight in the air. Outside, the street was empty. No sheriff, no hat, just rain, steady and cold, the kind that seeps in whether you let it or not. He found them on the cot with the blankets pulled to their knees, speaking in pieces like the rest would cost them. Ruth said, "Papa said the cellar keeps." She kept her eyes on the hook where the lamp hung. Milo said, "It keeps the bad things out." The man stood by the crates and let the air move around them. It smelled like rope, dirt, and metal rubbed smooth by years of hands. "Keeps what?" he asked. "Bad things," Ruth said. "Why don't they follow?" he asked. "Because it's under," Milo said, "not over." He watched the light wobble on the beam. "That's the reason?" "That's what Papa said," Ruth answered. "Under means the ground carries it and forgets." "What happens if someone opens it for the wrong reason?" he asked. Milo rubbed his thumb along a splinter. "Then it remembers." "What's the wrong reason?" the man said. "Calling something up," Ruth said. "Saying its name like a doorbell." "You ever see someone try?" he asked. "No," Ruth said. "Yes," Milo said at the same time. He didn't push. Pressing on a wound makes it close. He sat on an upturned crate. "You'll sleep here tonight," he said. "Quiet and still. If you need me, call." Ruth nodded. Milo did not. His eyes stayed on the square of light around the trapdoor. "Does the sheriff come down?" he asked. "No," the man said. "He doesn't like stairs that go the wrong way." "Will the man in the hat try?" Ruth asked. "He'll try a handle before a step," the man said. "But he listens first." "To what?" Milo asked. "To fear," the man said. Ruth folded the thin blanket over the patched one like she was covering a secret. "Papa said the cellar is safe because someone else lost it before we found it." The man watched her face. "Who lost it?" "The woman in the photo," Ruth said. "You knew her?" he asked. "We knew the silence after her," Milo said, which was not the same and somehow worse. He checked the pump and the bucket, the matches tucked in oilcloth. He pointed to the candle. "You can light that if the lamp goes out." "Light tells people where to look," Ruth said, testing him. "Only if they're already looking," he said. He climbed the steps and left the trapdoor open a hand's width. Through the evening, he heard their voices in small pieces. Milo asked, "If the sheriff comes, do we breathe?" Ruth said, "Breathe small." Milo asked, "Will the hat stand all night?" Ruth answered, "He doesn't mind the weather." The man sat with his back to the bar and let the words pass like water under a door. When the lamp burned low, he went to the hall, pulled the trapdoor shut, and slid the iron latch. The sound felt final. He kept his palm on the wood for a long breath. The building settled around him with tiny sounds, as if every nail remembered where it belonged. He returned to the counter and poured himself coffee that had been sitting too long. It tasted like pennies. He drank anyway. The window showed only his own shape and a smear of street. He lowered the flame on the last lamp until the room was a low hush. He counted his breaths to make the night sort itself into something he could hold. The first knock came soft, like the back of a knuckle on a door in the dark. He looked at the hall and waited. The second knock came after a space long enough to doubt the first. The third came slow as a clock. He set the cup down and walked to the trapdoor. He did not lift the latch. "Ruth," he said. "Yes," she answered, voice calm. "Why knock?" he asked. "We didn't," she said. Milo spoke, thin but certain. "Don't answer it." "Who would I be answering?" the man asked. Silence settled. It stretched until the boards themselves seemed to listen. He kept his hand near the latch without touching it. He pictured the square of cellar space below, the cot, the beam, the nail, the two small bodies breathing. He went back to the counter and pinched the candle out with wet fingers. He stood in the dark and let his eyes make sense of it. The room reshaped itself around outline and memory. Somewhere below, a weight shifted in a way that did not match sleep. He told himself it was children turning. The lie sounded clean and useless. He stayed up until the black thinned at the edges and the shapes of the stools returned. Before the first bird called, he walked to the hall, pressed his ear to the wood, and listened. No breath, no knock, only the cooled air of the underplace rising through the seam. He slid the latch and lifted the trapdoor a few inches. "Ruth," he said. "We're here," she answered. "You heard 3 knocks?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "What did they mean?" he asked. Milo spoke. "They mean someone remembered our name." The man let the door down soft, rested his hand on it, and made his voice steady. "Then forget it back." He stood there, counting to 10, then to 20, breathing slow until the dark felt ordinary again for the children. The door opened without the bell. The barkeeper looked up from the counter to see a man in a coat that had never known dirt. The fabric caught the lamplight, smooth as poured cream, buttons polished to a shine. His boots made no sound on the floorboards. He didn't sit. He didn't order. He laid a sealed envelope on the counter, pressing it flat with 2 fingers. "For you," the man said. The barkeeper glanced at it. "From who?" The man smiled, polite but distant. "Someone who thinks you could use the kind of help the money buys." "I don't take tips for nothing." "It's not nothing," the man said. "It's for the 2 strays." The barkeeper's hand stilled on the cloth he was using to wipe the counter. "Don't know what you mean." "Boy and girl, wet clothes, no shoes. Papa sent them here." The man tapped the envelope. "Turn them over, and you'll have enough to forget the past." The barkeeper kept his voice even. "Not selling anything." "Not even for peace?" the man asked. "You've got something under your floorboards that's louder than sleep. This is quiet." He didn't touch the envelope. "If the governor wants something from me, he can come himself." The man's smile didn't shift. "The governor doesn't come to the cellars." The barkeeper's eyes narrowed. "And you do." "I go where I'm told." The man stepped back, adjusting his coat. "You have until nightfall tomorrow. After that, other arrangements will be made." The barkeeper didn't answer. The man left without turning his back until the door was open. Rainlight followed him out. The envelope sat on the counter like it had weight. He didn't open it right away. He poured himself coffee, drank half, then slid a knife under the seal. Thick paper. Inside, 1 folded sheet and a single banknote that could keep a man warm for months. The letter was short, 2 lines in clean handwriting. "Deliver the children to the sheriff. Payment in full upon confirmation." He read it twice, then crumpled the paper in his fist. The banknote followed. He walked to the stove, pulled the door open, and tossed them in. Flame caught fast, curling the edges black. Footsteps came from the hallway. Ruth stood there, Milo behind her. Both stared at the fire. "What was that?" Ruth asked. "Trash," he said. "From who?" "No one worth naming." Milo stepped closer. "Papa said fire tells the truth if you watch long enough." The barkeeper shoved the door closed, muting the glow. "Then there's no need to watch it burn." Ruth's gaze stayed on the stove. "Was it about us?" He didn't answer. "That means yes," Milo said quietly. "It means," the barkeeper said, "that people like to think they can buy what isn't theirs." "Papa says everything's for sale if you're the right kind of buyer," Ruth said. "Then he's wrong," the barkeeper said. Milo tilted his head. "Or maybe you're not the right kind of seller." The barkeeper set his cup down harder than he meant to. "You should be in the cellar." "Why?" Ruth asked. "Because that's where you're safest." "From the governor's man?" she asked. "From everyone," he said. They didn't move. He walked past them to the hallway, lifted the trap door, and waited until they went down. Ruth's hand lingered on the edge before she stepped onto the first stair. "If you change your mind," she said, "we'll know." "Then don't look for signs," he said. When the door closed over them, he slid the latch slowly. He stood there listening. The rain outside had gone thin, each drop spaced like a watch ticking. Somewhere in the street, a carriage wheel splashed through a puddle and rolled on. He went back to the stove, opened the door again. The paper was gone, nothing left but black flakes that broke when he touched them. He swept them into his palm and scattered them into the ash bucket. The counter still had a faint mark where the envelope had sat. He wiped it once, twice, until the wood felt like it had always been bare. By nightfall, no one else came in. He lit only the corner lamp, keeping the rest in shadow. Outside, a shape paused under the far post. Not the man in the hat, not the governor's man, just someone waiting for the dark to thicken before moving. He stayed behind the counter, hands flat, eyes on the door, knowing the next knock wouldn't be for a drink. The bar was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt earned. He moved through it slowly, gathering cups, setting chairs straight, keeping one ear turned toward the hall. The children had been still most of the evening. No knocks from below, no questions through the trapdoor, just the soft weight of their presence under his feet. He was looking for a clean rag in the back room when the drawer stuck halfway. He gave it a tug, felt something catch, then gave. Under a stack of yellowed invoices, a photograph lay curled at the edges. He lifted it into the light. 2 children stood in front of a plain wooden house. Their faces were younger, softer, but the eyes were the same. Ruth with her hair pulled tight, Milo with his hand almost hiding behind hers. Beside them was a woman in a dark dress, her hand resting on Ruth's shoulder. He knew that hand. He knew the face above it. The woman had been gone for years, buried in the field beyond the well, her name spoken in the low tones reserved for debts that were never settled. He had stood at that burial, hat in hand, not close enough to be counted among mourners, not far enough to pretend he didn't care. The paper was cracked at the corners. He traced a thumb along the line of her jaw in the picture, wondering who had taken it and why it had ended up here. He hadn't kept anything of hers, not on purpose. A creak sounded in the hall. Milo stood there, bare feet on the boards, eyes locked on the photograph. "Where'd you get that?" "Found it," the man said. Milo stepped closer, gaze fixed on the image. "That's her." "I know. Papa keeps another one," Milo said. "It has you in it." The barkeeper's hand tightened on the photograph. "Me?" Milo nodded. "Papa said it was the last time you smiled." He set the picture on the table. "Where's this other photo now?" "With him." "Where is he?" Milo's mouth pulled tight. "He comes and goes." "Does he know you're here?" "He knows where we go," Milo said. The barkeeper studied the boy. "And he lets you?" "Sometimes," Milo said. "Sometimes he sends us." Ruth's voice came from the hall, quiet but clear. "He sent us this time." She walked in, eyes on the photograph. "To remind you." "Of what?" the man asked. She looked at him the way a child looks at a locked door. "That the ground remembers." He slid the photograph into his pocket. "You should be in the cellar." Ruth didn't move. "She's in the field. You know that." "I know." "She didn't want to be there," Ruth said. "I know," he said again. Milo stepped back toward the hall. "Papa said the man in the hat was there that day." The barkeeper turned to him. "At the burial?" Milo nodded. "Papa said he stood by the well and didn't move until dark." The man thought of the shape in the rain, brim low, still as stone. "Did your papa tell you why?" "No," Milo said. "He said you would." The barkeeper shook his head. "Not tonight." Ruth's gaze stayed on his pocket. "She liked you," she said. "She didn't know me well enough," he said. "She knew enough," Ruth replied. He moved to the hallway, opened the trapdoor, and waited until they both stepped down. Neither argued this time. Ruth's hand slid over the edge of the opening as she passed, fingertips brushing the wood like she was checking it for cracks. When the door shut, he stayed standing there, hand resting on the latch. The photograph in his pocket felt heavier than paper. In the bar, the lamplight seemed thinner. He set the photo on the counter, studied it again. The woman's eyes caught the light just enough to make them look alive. Outside, the rain had started again, soft at first, then harder, like something working its way back into the earth. He slid the photograph into a drawer behind the bar, one he could lock. But he didn't. Dawn came slowly, pale light leaking through the front windows in a thin wash. He'd been awake long before it, sitting at the counter, listening to the building breathe. When the first sound of rain easing reached him, he stood, took his coat from the peg, and stepped outside. The ground was soft, churned in places. A set of boot prints led away from the bar's side door, neat and straight, not hurried. He followed them past the empty trough, past the shed that hadn't held feed in years. The prints sank deeper as they neared the fence line. He stopped where they stopped, in a patch of mud wide enough to take another step, but nothing beyond. The earth ahead was smooth, untouched, as though the boots had simply stopped existing. He crouched, ran his hand along the ground. No drag marks, no turning back, just an end. Across the road, half veiled by the lifting mist, the man in the hat stood again. Same brim low over the eyes, same long coat hanging straight. His hands were hidden this time, one under the coat, the other resting against his side. The barkeeper straightened but didn't move toward him. The road between them was still wet, pooling in the low places. The man didn't shift weight, didn't tilt his head. A soft scuff behind him made him turn. Ruth stood a few paces back, Milo just behind her, both barefoot, their hair still mussed from sleep. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "You shouldn't be by the fence," Ruth answered. Milo's eyes slid past him to the figure across the road. "He's closer than before." "You were out here before dawn?" the barkeeper asked. Ruth shook her head. "We hear him in the dark sometimes. Boots on the road." "He doesn't move fast," Milo said. "Just enough to be somewhere else when you look again." The barkeeper glanced back. The man in the hat hadn't moved. "What does he want?" "Papa says he waits for someone to ask," Ruth said. He looked again at the boot prints ending in the mud. "You know these tracks?" Ruth stepped closer, peered at the ground. "Not his. Too heavy." "Whose then?" She didn't answer. Milo said, "Someone who didn't get far." The wind shifted, carrying the damp smell of the road. The man in the hat raised his chin slightly, just enough to suggest he was marking them. "Back inside," the barkeeper said. Ruth didn't move. "If we turn our backs, he'll follow." "Then face the door," he said. Milo stayed where he was. "Papa says once he crosses a fence, you can't send him back." The barkeeper's eyes swept the line of posts and wire between them and the road. "Then we won't let him cross." They walked toward the bar slowly, keeping the road in sight. The man in the hat didn't step forward, didn't vanish, just remained, as though distance was something he owned. Inside, the barkeeper closed the door, slid the bolt, and went to the window. Through the glass, the figure was still there, small now in the early light, but no less fixed. Ruth stood beside him. He was there the day she was buried. He didn't look at her. "You told me." "Do you believe me?" "Yes." Milo came to the window's other side. "Papa says the fence isn't for keeping things out. It's for showing what's already inside." The barkeeper let the words settle. "You think he's inside already?" Milo shrugged. "If he wants to be." The figure across the road finally turned, slow and deliberate, and began walking along the fence line, boots leaving no mark in the grass. Ruth's hand tightened on the barkeeper's sleeve. "Where's he going?" "Doesn't matter," the man said. "It matters if he finds the well," she said. The barkeeper's jaw set. "He won't." But he stayed at the window until the man in the hat disappeared behind the line of sheds at the edge of sight, leaving the road bare and the fence still dripping with the last of the rain. They came to him mid-morning, quiet, as if they'd been deciding all night. Ruth stood in the doorway to the back hall, Milo just behind her. She didn't ask if he was busy. "You should see the well," she said. He set down the glass he was drying. "What for?" "Papa used it," she said. Milo added, "to make it sleep." The barkeeper studied them for a long moment before stepping out from behind the counter. "Show me." They took him through the yard behind the bar, past the leaning shed, into the patch of ground that always seemed cooler than the rest. The well sat at the center, stones worn smooth, the old wooden cover pushed half aside, weeds pressed up against its base. The rope hung frayed, tied to a splintered beam. Ruth knelt by the rim. "Papa dropped things down here." "What kind of things?" "Things it wanted," she said. Milo's eyes didn't leave the opening. "Things it needed." The barkeeper stepped closer and looked down. The shaft was dark after only a few feet. The light swallowed as if the stones leaned in. "What's down there?" "Sleep," Ruth said. "Sleep for who?" "For what's under," she answered. Her voice carried into the well and came back wrong, stretched, distant, as though the drop were deeper than it could be. The barkeeper leaned on the stone rim. "And if it wakes?" Milo said, "It climbs." "Has it ever happened?" "Not all the way," Ruth said. Papa said the man in the hat would come first. He let his eyes trace the rope, noting the spots where it had been cut and retied. "How long since you were here?" "Last time was before she went in the field," Ruth said. He looked at her. "The woman in the photograph?" Ruth nodded once. "She brought something here. We didn't see what." "Papa wouldn't let us look," Milo said. "He said it was better not to know what it eats." The barkeeper stepped back from the rim, feeling the cool draft rising out of the shaft. "And you think it's still hungry?" Ruth looked past him toward the road. "It's always hungry." The air felt heavier now, as though the yard had drawn in around them. He glanced toward the fence line. No sign of the man in the hat, but the stillness was worse than seeing him. "You stay away from it," he told them. "We came to show you," Ruth said, "not to hide it." Milo reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, flat stone, black as coal. "Papa dropped these down when it stirred." "Where'd you get that?" Milo held it up. Found it by the cellar. The barkeeper took it, felt the weight, smooth and warm against his skin despite the cool air. He didn't like the way it sat in his palm as though it wanted to stay there. Put it back, he said. Milo's face was unreadable. In the well. Number somewhere it won't be found again. Then it will look for another, Ruth said. He dropped the stone into his own pocket. I'll handle it. They started back toward the bar. He kept his eyes on the ground, half expecting to see a second set of prints alongside theirs. At the back door, Ruth stopped. Papa said if you ever came here, it meant you'd already chosen. Chosen what? To keep it asleep, she said. Or to wake it. He didn't answer. Inside, he closed the door and drew the bolt. The stone in his pocket felt heavier with every step back to the counter. From the window over the sink, he could see the well's shadow stretching farther than the stones themselves. Too far for the light. The door opened just after dark. The sheriff stepped in like the room belonged to him, rain still in his beard, coat dripping onto the floorboards. He didn't wait for an invitation. He walked straight to the counter, set both hands on the wood, and leaned forward. I'll make it plain, he said. I know they're here. The barkeeper kept wiping the same glass. Then you know more than me. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. Don't play it that way. Boy and girl. Been in town too long for me not to hear. Maybe you should clean your ears, the barkeeper said. The sheriff's jaw flexed. I'm not asking. Bring them out. They're not yours to take. They're not yours to keep, the sheriff shot back. They belong where I can watch them. You think you can keep them from the man in the hat? From the governor's man? You can't even keep yourself clear of trouble. The barkeeper set the glass down slowly. And you can? I can keep them alive, the sheriff said. Alive for what? The sheriff didn't answer. His gaze shifted to the hallway, to where the trapdoor waited at the end. He stepped around the counter, boots heavy on the floor. The barkeeper moved with him, blocking the path. You don't want to take that step. Are you going to stop me? If I have to. For a long moment they stood there, close enough to see the damp lines in each other's eyes. Then the sheriff's mouth pulled into something that wasn't a smile. You think you've got the right to decide who walks out of here? I think you've already decided who doesn't, the barkeeper said. The sheriff straightened. This is your last chance to hand them over. If you don't, you're tied to what comes next. The barkeeper didn't move. Then I'm tired. The sheriff gave a short nod, as if confirming something to himself. He turned and walked to the door without looking back. When it shut, the latch clicked like the tick of a clock running out. The barkeeper waited in the silence that followed, listening for his boots outside. There were none, only the sound of the rain, heavier now, pressing against the glass. He went to the hall, opened the trap door enough to see their faces in the dim light. He's gone, he said. Ruth's eyes searched his. For now? For now. Milo asked, what's he going to do? Something he can't take back, the barkeeper said. Stay down here tonight. He closed the trapdoor, slid the iron latch, and returned to the counter. The stove fire was low, the flames slow and orange. He fed it 2 small logs and sat in the stool nearest the hallway, waiting without knowing what for. It was past midnight when he smelled it. Not wood smoke, but something sharper, like metal that had been too close to heat. He looked at the counter. The badge lay there, catching the light. It was scorched along one edge. The metal warped, the star blackened. The back smelled of ash and something faintly sweet, like burned paper. He picked it up. It was still warm. No knock, no sound of the door. The badge hadn't been there moments ago. He looked toward the windows and saw nothing but the sheen of the wet street. From below, Ruth's voice floated up. What happened? He didn't answer. Milo's voice came after. Is it his? Yes, the barkeeper said. Where is he? The barkeeper set the badge back on the counter. Not here. The children didn't speak again. He sat there until the stove went low and the lamp dimmed, the badge between them like something left behind on purpose. He didn't touch it again, but he didn't put it away either. By dawn it was cold. The rain had stopped, but the smell of ash clung to the room, a reminder that the sheriff had been there even if no one could prove it. The door opened without a sound, though the hinges were old enough to complain. He looked up from the counter and saw him at last, the man in the hat. Close now, the brim hid his eyes, but not the line of his mouth, flat and patient. His coat hung heavy, the hem damp from the road. Papa owes me, he said. His voice was low, even, the kind of tone that didn't need to rise to be heard. The barkeeper stayed where he was. "I'm not Papa." The man took one slow step inside. "Debts run to blood, not names." He shut the door behind him without turning. The room seemed smaller with him in it. "What do you want?" the barkeeper asked. "The children," the man said simply, "and the thing they carry. They're not yours." "They're not yours either," the man said. "You've been keeping them under your floor like you think the ground will change what they are. It's kept them safe," the barkeeper said. "For now," the man answered. "But you feel it, don't you? It's shifting down there. You've heard it." From the hallway came a faint murmur, Ruth's voice too low to catch the words. The barkeeper stepped out from behind the counter, putting himself between the man and the trapdoor. "You're not going near them." The man tilted his head just enough to see around him. "They're whispering because they know it won't hold much longer." "It'll hold," the barkeeper said. The man's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "You think this is about holding? It's about release. I'm here to take the debt before it collects itself." The barkeeper's voice stayed flat. "You think I'll hand them over?" "I think you'll decide what's worse," the man said. "Me taking them? Or what comes if I don't?" Ruth's voice came again, clearer now. "It's waking." The man in the hat didn't look toward the sound, but his hands loosened at his sides. "She's right. You've got hours, maybe less." Milo's voice followed, tight. "Papa said if it wakes without him, it takes whoever's closest." The barkeeper shifted his weight, ready for the man to move. "If you're not here to help, leave." "This is helping," the man said. "You just don't like the form it takes." "You're not touching them," the barkeeper said. The man took another step, closing the space. "I'll make you a bargain. You let me walk out with them, and I'll see to it that the thing below never climbs another step." "That's no bargain," the barkeeper said. "That's a theft." The man's head lowered, a shadow covering more of his face. "Call it what you want. The offer dies with the next knock from under your feet." The floor creaked, but not from the weight above. A faint thud came from the cellar. Not 3 knocks this time, just one long enough to feel in the bones. Ruth's voice shook. "It's closer." The barkeeper didn't move. "You leave now." The man in the hat straightened. "Papa said you'd choose the harder path. He said you were built for it." "Then believe him," the barkeeper said. The man studied him for a long moment, then stepped back toward the door. "Hard paths end the same way," he said. He opened the door and let the night air in. "You'll wish you'd taken the bargain." The door shut behind him without a slam, just a final click that left the room colder. The barkeeper stayed where he was until the sound of boots on the wet road faded. Only then did he go to the hallway. The trapdoor latch trembled under his hand, as if something had brushed it from below. He opened it enough to see Ruth and Milo looking up at him. Ruth's face was pale. "It's pressing against the wall." Milo's hands were clenched tight. "Papa never said what to do if it pushed." The barkeeper lowered the door and slid the latch back into place, the metal cold against his fingers. He stood over it, listening to the quiet that didn't feel empty, knowing the next sound might break more than just the floor. The first sound was the latch giving way, not a break, but a release, as if something had worked it from the inside. He turned toward the hallway just as the trapdoor flew up with a violent crack against the wall. Cold air rushed into the bar, sharp enough to sting his eyes, heavy with a smell like wet earth left too long in the dark, mixed with the sour rot of something that had been alive too recently. The lamplight seemed to thin, pulled toward the opening. From below came a shift, slow and deliberate, the scrape of weight against stone. Chains followed, dragging in a rhythm too measured to be mindless. The links clinked, then paused, then clinked again. Ruth stood at the edge of the hole, her face calm, her hands folded in front of her. Milo was beside her, eyes wide but dry. Neither made a sound. The barkeeper moved toward them, every step feeling heavier than the last. "Back from it," he said. Ruth shook her head. "It knows us." "Everyone knows everyone," he said. Milo's gaze stayed fixed on the dark below. "Not like this." Behind him, the door opened without hurry. The man in the hat stepped inside, boots silent on the floor. The brim shadowed his eyes, but the curl at the corner of his mouth was clear. "You waited too long," he said. The barkeeper turned toward him. "You brought it." "I only walked the road," the man said. "You opened the ground." "I didn't open anything." The man's smile deepened. Then you kept it company until it could open itself. Another movement below, faster now. A scrape against the inner wall, a chain sliding loose, and then snapping taut again. The air carried a wet sound, like breath dragging over stone. Ruth spoke without looking away from the opening. "It's closer than it's ever been." Milo took a step toward the edge. The barkeeper caught his arm. "Not another inch." The man in the hat moved closer, tilting his head as though listening. "You feel it in the floorboards yet? That's its reach." "What does it want?" the barkeeper asked. The man's eyes lifted under the brim. "Debt. Always debt." The thing below shifted again, and the cold in the room sharpened, cutting through the heat from the stove. Something metallic hit the wall of the shaft and rolled, chain clinking after it. Ruth's voice was quiet. "Papa said if it gets to the air, it will remember everyone it's owed." The man in the hat crouched near the opening, peering down. "And I'm first." The barkeeper stepped between him and the hole. "You're not taking them." The man rose, hat brim almost brushing the barkeeper's chin. "You think I came for them. I came for the thing they carry in their bones. Hand them over, and it sleeps another century." Milo's voice cut in. "Papa said you lied the last time." The man in the hat looked past the barkeeper at the boy. "And yet here I am, still walking the roads while he hides." The chains below went still. The silence pressed into the room, thick and waiting. Then came the knock. One sharp, deliberate strike from the dark, making the trapdoor frame shiver. Ruth said, "That's the last warning." The barkeeper tightened his grip on Milo's arm. "Get back." The man in the hat didn't move. "You have no choice now. It's either them or you." The barkeeper stared at him. "Then it's me." The smile vanished. "You can't pay this debt." The cold rose up again, carrying with it the faint sound of something wet sliding over wood. The barkeeper stepped to the very edge of the opening, looking down into the dark. He couldn't see it, but he felt its size, the way the space seemed to bend around it, how the air carried its breath in long, measured pulls. He didn't turn when he spoke. "Take the children to the far corner. Keep them there." Ruth's voice stayed steady. "And you." "Hold the line," he said. The man in the hat made a low sound, almost a laugh. "For a man who claims not to be their papa, you're making all his mistakes." The barkeeper planted his feet as another movement below shook the boards. The chain rattled once more, then began to rise toward the surface. The cold from the open trapdoor felt like it had seeped into his bones. The chains below shifted again, slow and heavy, the sound stretching into the silence between heartbeats. He knew now, the truth settling into him like the weight of a hand on his shoulder. If he handed the children over, the thing below would be satisfied. If not, it would climb. Ruth and Milo stood together at the far end of the room, their faces pale but steady. The man in the hat lingered near the wall, watching like he'd been here before. "It's waiting for you to decide," the man said. The barkeeper didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on the black opening in the floor. "I already have." "Then say it." The man pressed. He turned to the children. "Run." Ruth blinked once. "Where?" "Anywhere it can't follow," he said. Milo's hands clenched. "It follows everything." "Not if it has me," the barkeeper said. Ruth shook her head. "Papa said." "Papa's not here," the barkeeper cut in. "Go." The man in the hat took a step forward. "You're trading your life for a delay. That's all it ever is." "Then it's enough," the barkeeper said. The children hesitated for a heartbeat longer, then moved. Ruth pulled Milo toward the door, their bare feet quick against the boards. Below, the sound began. Not the careful chain clink from before, but a deep, rolling grind that made the floor tremble. The roar came next, not from a throat, but from the earth itself. A sound so low it seemed to rattle the walls apart. The barkeeper stepped closer to the opening, the cold biting through his coat. "You have me," he said into the dark. "Let them go." The man in the hat stayed still, his brim low, his mouth unreadable. "It will take you," he said, "but not the way you think." The roar deepened, the air pressing down on them as if the whole building were sinking. From the hallway came the slam of the front door as the children vanished into the night. The barkeeper gripped the edge of the trapdoor frame, holding himself steady as another shutter ran up from below. The darkness felt closer now, like it had risen just out of sight. "Do it," he said. The man in the hat stepped forward, close enough that his shadow merged with the barkeeper's. "You'll see me again," he said. The barkeeper didn't answer. The cold surged upward, swallowing the heat from the stove. The sound from below shifted, less roar now, more the long pull of something retreating. The chains dragged away, slower with each movement, until only the echo of them remained. Then, silence. The air stayed cold for a long moment before it began to lift, leaving only the smell of damp earth and burned metal. The barkeeper stayed at the edge until the quiet felt real. When he finally stepped back, the man in the hat was gone. The trap door hung open, but nothing moved beneath. He crossed the room, closed it, and slid the latch into place. His hands felt numb, though the cold had already left the air. He sat at the counter waiting for the sound of the children returning. None came. By dawn, the light through the windows was thin and pale. The building felt hollow, like it had been emptied of more than people. On the counter lay a single photograph. He picked it up. Ruth and Milo stood in the frame, the same steady eyes, the same closeness. Beside them was himself, younger by years, his face unguarded in a way it hadn't been in a long time. And behind them all, half in shadow, was a man whose face could not be seen beneath the brim of his hat.